Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority. The number to call my office is 734-985-5891. As always, you can see me live right now on my Facebook page, which is Strategic Healing. And later I post this on my YouTube channel, which is I'm doing a video of this right now. And I always tell people you can't rewind the radio, but you can rewind Facebook and you can rewind YouTube. So my my YouTube channel is Jason Eagle QRA. Today we are going to talk about Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's, not Alzheimer's. Many times you'll hear the same thing when people say prostate. They'll say prostrate, and it just drives me nuts, I'm correcting your grammar. No, it's Alzheimer's, and it was named, Alzheimer's is, again, it's a disease that affects the brain. It was named after a Dr. Alois Alzheimer, who in 1906, Dr. Alzheimer noticed changes in the brain of a woman who had died of an unusual mental illness. Her symptoms included memory loss, language problems, and unpredictable behavior. After she died, he examined her. He basically cut open her head and looked in her brain and found abnormal clumps, which are now called amyloid plaques, and tangled bundles of fibers, now called neurofibrillary or TAU tangles. Okay. These plaques and tangles in the brain are still considered some of the main features of Alzheimer's disease. Another feature is the loss of connections between nerve cells, which are called neurons in the brain. So basically, they're like the wires that connect, or almost like the Wi-Fi, which is, if you're ever in a basement and you drop the call, well, that's kind of what happens with these neurons, is they can't, it can't pass the signal on. Neurons transmit message between different parts of the brain and from the brain to muscles and organs of the body. Okay. Now, the time to treat Alzheimer's is not when you have it. Now, there are some things you can help people when they have it, but it's a really, really difficult thing. The time to treat it is well before you have it, which is when you're younger. And there are so many things that you can do. And why would you want to treat Alzheimer's? Because it's really bad. I don't know if you've ever seen people with Alzheimer's, and it's scary because they, I had a family member who had Alzheimer's, and actually she was not my direct family member, but she was another family member's, or interrelated family members. It was their grandma. And talking with an Alzheimer's person is so frustrating with people who are related to them, especially if it's your mother or your father or somebody like that, because they don't remember you, and it gets so frustrated. However, one of the interesting things with Alzheimer's people is if you take on a different tactic, which is instead of getting frustrated that they don't remember you, that they don't remember that you're the son or whatever, and you can just be a stranger. If you get rid of that ego in the sense of like they don't remember me, but if you treat them nicely, just like another person, and even ask them questions about themselves. One of the things that I found with Alzheimer's patients is they can't remember what just happened, but they can remember stuff from a long time ago. So ask them stories, especially if they're your parent. Ask them stories about them when they were older, and they will remember it, and they will tell you stories, or even old music of their time when they were a kid or when they were a teenager, and you'll see them brighten up, and then they'll start telling stories, and then but they'll tell stories a lot of time. They'll tell stories almost have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they'll have kind of like a moral play to that, which is a lot of times you'll find people with dementia and Alzheimer's, of which is they're searching for meaning. And you want it to mean something to them, that they remember you. That doesn't really matter, to them. And we don't understand why it wouldn't matter, but it doesn't, because, people are people. And once you get to a certain age, and time frame, even with your children, once you're an adult with your adult child, it's like it's okay that you're not their child. It's okay that you're just another person, or it's okay that you're just an adult. So it's really difficult for people who are too close to a Alzheimer's patient, because they think that the greatest value in their loved one is that I am who I am and you remember me. It's not the greatest value, actually, and it causes them anxiety. One of the other things that I would have for them is the family members, when they would say, "We are here," they thought that they were in a certain town or they were in a certain place, and then you would remind them, "No, we are here." And then they would go back and so sometimes too, what you would call selective, almost lying, or it's not really lying. It's kind of like, just tell them what they want to hear, and then they will settle down. They'll be, "Oh, okay, fine, fine." So if they say that they're in a wrong town and you agree with them, "Yeah, we're here," that's fine, because they get over their anxiety. Another one interesting stories that they found is there's a lot of Alzheimer's patients that when they are in, let's say, a home, they want to get up and leave. They want to I need to get out of here. I need to get home. I want to get home. And they have a lot of it. That's why they have to lock them down, because they really will leave and get lost. And then there's been many of them that got lost out in the cold, and they died because of the exposure and things like that. There was a number of different Alzheimer's units or dementia units, and in particular, I listened to this one. It was an NPR, and they did a study about, I think it's in England, and they were having this happens often where they will leave. And so what they did is they did this ingenious thing, which is they let them be open. But what they did is, so they didn't lock them down. They didn't lock the doors. What they did is out in front of the building, which was just out in the front, they actually created what looked like a imaginary or a false. It looked exactly like a bus stop. Because oftentimes what they would do is they would find that they would go to a bus stop and they would try to get home, but they didn't know where they were going. They didn't know where they were. And so what they found is when they created this artificial bus stop or something like that, they would go and they would sit there, and then they would get back up and they would go back in. And what it did is it gave them, so when they created this environment, and there's even some nursing homes that they create this in the inside where it looks like, like a town square type of thing. And they'll let them walk around this place and sort it out. And then what it does is it settles their anxiety, because it gives them the ability to feel like they are doing what they want to do, which is they want to go home. But so there's been, again, the tactic of dealing with Alzheimer's patients in terms of once they already have them, there's a whole bunch of different tactics. And part of it is you have to settle their mind, and you have to settle their anxiety. And many times, like I said, dealing with them in terms, I found with Alzheimer's patients is treat them like a child, which is instead of, like reading to them, but reading children's books, picture books, these types of things. What it does is it settles their anxiety. We're not talking about curing them. We're just talking about giving them peace of mind, and that helps them so much better. But it's very difficult when you're a family member, because you want them back, and you may not get them back. But today's show is all about identifying the root causes of Alzheimer's diseases so we can stop it before it happens. What Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease, and its most common form of dementia. It occurs in the region of the brain that impacts the learning, which is the limbic system, which includes the hippocampus and the amygdala. One of the earliest symptoms is the ability to learn new information. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Memory loss worsens as the disease progresses, and eventually an individual with this disease will not be able to even perform the simplest of tasks. When it really gets further along, kind of like Lou Gehrig's disease, the muscles controlling their breathing doesn't even work, okay? Again, this show is all about, is there anything that we can do about it? Where does it come from? And there's a lot that you can do about it, even when you start noticing it. But this is really about before you even come anywhere close to it. Starting these things when you're younger, including, especially if you have high risk factors, meaning some family members that have it. And there's some genetic type of things. And so if you have Alzheimer's in your family, start treating it, basically doing some of these things that you would do to prevent it when you're a child, when you are a teenager, when you're 20s, when you're 30s. This invincible, it's not going to happen to me. Well, Yes, it can. And Alzheimer's disease accounts for 60 to 80% of the dementia cases. Now, dementia is just this word that says, something happened to the brain. There's lots of different forms of dementia, losing memory, these all type, but 60 to 80% is the highest. So it has the most amounts of what's called the dementia patients. It usually occurs by age 65 and above. Early onset may occur prior to the age of 65. There's people in their 30s. It's rare, but 30s, 40s, they can start. But there are some factors that made this happen and underlying things that you don't know about that I'm going to teach you about. Life expectancy, well, first of all, Alzheimer's disease impacts about 4.5 million Americans. Now, worldwide, boy, those numbers are way, way up. And it's actually higher in America. America, because of our environment, because of so many things, which I'm going to get into, you don't have it as much in other parts of the country, older world parts of the country. Part of it has to do with how they move. Part of it has to do with walking, all of these different things. They don't watch as much TV, keeping the brain active. Those are factors that play a role. Okay, life expectancy after diagnosis is about 4 to 8 years because when it really goes along, keeps chugging along, it can really, again, the brain controls everything. And when the brain starts falling apart, then the body starts falling apart. The cost of care for Alzheimer's disease and other dementia in the United States alone was about $277 billion in 2018. That's a lot. Okay. So when you look at a brain, when you look at a healthy brain, they can show, and there's multiple ways of looking at the brain, literally looking at the size of the brain, and then there's doing scans, which you can look and you can see how the fluid is. You can look at and peer in through, let's say, an MRI. So a healthy brain is nice and fat and chunky, and all the areas are full, and then especially when you can do what's called a PET scan or a active MRI. They can do MRIs and then they can do active PET scans, which is you can see people thinking. You can see parts of the brain light up. And when they have Alzheimer's, not only does the brain shrink, it starts to look like Swiss cheese, literally like there's holes in the brain. And then you can see whole areas that don't light up. Like, for instance, we know when a person sees this particular thing, this thing should light up when they're doing math. So Alzheimer's is it's shrinking and it's just disappearing, okay? Who is impacted most by Alzheimer's disease? In the United States, over 13 million women are living with Alzheimer's disease, okay? Or caring for. About 2/3 of the American are women. About 2 out of 3 of the Alzheimer's patients are actually women. Women are at more than, in their 60s, are more than twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease, right? Almost 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's disease are women, okay? Of the 5.6 people aged 65 or older with Alzheimer's in the United States, like I said, 3.5 are women. So women are at a much, much higher risk. Women live longer than men, typically, but they're at a higher risk for this. And we'll get into some of these things. Now, we'll start with what regular science or medical science really puts a lot of emphasis on, which is called genetic factors, meaning you were born with it. This is nothing you can do. And if you haven't heard my take on genetics is not a curse like they would like to say. Is there any value of knowing your genetics? Is there any value of getting your genes tested? Yes, it just gives you propensity, and what it tells you, it's an early warning sign of what you should do, what you should know about yourself to be protective. So again, many of for instance, the genetic factors, in particular, which is a real popular in the genes, which is called the MTHFR gene, that stands for methylation. There's some people that don't methylate very well, and there are things that you can do to repair that. You can take remethylators, you can stop the demethylation, and a lot of this starts with foods and behaviors and things like that. And then there's another risk factor, which is called APOE, which is lipoprotein, which is, again, it's a fat because the brain is made out of fat. And if you have the wrong type of fats in the brain, it becomes hardened. And if you don't have enough of the fats, then the brain just doesn't get repaired and it doesn't get built upon. Okay. Liver detox, again, liver detoxification, because there is a huge relationship between metals. In particular, if you've ever heard this before, which they called aluminum. Aluminum can have a huge role. And where does a lot of aluminum come from? Old people cooking on aluminum cookware. Do not cook with aluminum. Don't cook with it. And again, if you eat out, a lot of times they make with aluminum. Get either the stainless steel, the good hard stainless steel pots, good old-fashioned, well-seasoned cast iron, the ceramic coated cast iron, which is like the La Creuset, those types of things. You know, there's better things to cook with. And another thing that's really bad to cook with is those non-stick things. Those non-stick, especially the old non-stick things, those things have Teflon and stuff like that. Teflon has been shown to be part of this stuff that's growing inside the brain. Okay, let's go into this MTHFR gene, right? Increased total plasma homocysteine levels are found to be associated with Alzheimer's disease because the methylation gene encodes a key enzyme that influences the metabolism of homocysteine. Homocysteine is one of the things that comes from stress. Stress is a huge factor. People that are stressed out, people in particular, you'll find more women that are the ones that it has to be done just right and they stress out about everything, and those are going to be the ones that are going to be the higher cases of the dementia, and including the Alzheimer's disease, because they're hurting their brain, the stress that's going on in their body. And stress is not just, well, a stressful environment, because there can be people that are in a stressful environment that don't stress, right? People have stress handling capabilities, okay? All right, so then we get into Alzheimer's in the brain. There are billions of nerve cells in the brain that operate in different ways and carry out different tasks, such as learning and retention. It is believed that Alzheimer's disease prevents brain cells from communicating. When cells begin to die, this creates irreversible changes in the brain. What role do plaques and tangles? Now, we've heard about plaques. Where's another thing that plaque comes in? Plaque comes in terms of heart disease, and there is a relationship between the plaque that is clogging up your heart that causes you to then have, let's say, a heart attack, or actually have to have, let's say, quadruple bypass or something like that. It's the same type of plaques, and these plaques are this gummy material that then starts to block the blood vessels, and then so a stroke can be caused by these plaques, which is basically you get a log jam, and then if the brain doesn't have a constant supply of blood, parts of it will die. And that's what we're starting to see in this Alzheimer's. As I said, is the Swiss cheese part. The holes are dead areas where it died. Okay. The role that plaques are described as deposits of proteins called beta amyloid that build up between the nerve cells. Basically, it causes a blockage. tau proteins build up within the cells. Aging promotes the development of plaques with the Alzheimer's disease and accumulates very large amounts that build up in the limbic system. The damage and the death of the nerve cells have significant implications for the brain function. So keeping the brain alive, and again, there's many things I'm going to get into in terms of what causes this death. But one of the things they know is that this plaque is forming. Now we're going to get to, where does this plaque come from? Because this is not, it's a response to something. Just as I said that the plaque that's forming inside the heart or inside the blood vessels, it's actually a response to damage. So there's damage going on, and then the plaque is forming. So we really want to go to where the damage is, okay? Factors impacting Alzheimer's disease onset and progression. As I said, stress. Number 2, this is huge. This is something that only you can do for yourself, and I can help you with this because there are things that you can do. But it's sleep deprivation. People with sleep deprivation. You know that the number one cause of most car accidents is actually sleep deprivation. It's not drunk driving. It's actually sleep, because actually sleep deprivation, sleep deprived people act like they're a drunk driver. Sleep deprivation is related to so many different things, and only you can put yourself to bed and create those right circumstances so that you can sleep. Hormone deficiencies. Brain trauma. Have you had some sort of like a whiplash or a concussion? These types of things. I'll get in later in terms of doing mud packs and things like that to help to repair brain damage. And again, you don't have to know that you ever had brain damage. So, what they're finding, like with say football, which is, do you have to be a concussion? What type of concussion causes later brain damage? Do you have to be a boxer and have yourself knocked out every day? Or could have been just once when you were a kid? It could be just once. But the key is it's that it wasn't treated. Now, if you treat a trauma in terms of, let's say, a concussion, and there's many great things that we can do in terms of like even Deltanol, which is this delta tocotrienol that's given to people with car accidents. It's given to people with spinal damage. Even the military uses this. It's a vitamin E, one of the forms of the vitamin E, which is not the tocopherols, but the tocotrienols. They actually will inject this into a person right into the spinal cord, because when a person gets brain damage, or let's say really bad head trauma, the brain swells up so much that then it basically chokes off all the oxygen. So the secret is getting that swelling down. Okay, so if you've had a car accident and you had a whiplash or something like that, get into your chiropractor, get into a person like me, and treat it. And again, I feel fine. Well, you don't know. Okay. Environmental toxins, as I said, mercury, lead, aluminum, cadmium, these types of things. Your teeth, it's the biggest source of heavy metals in terms of mercury. We know mercury destroys brain tissue, nerve tissue. Okay, we'll get into the later again on how do we do that. Nutritional deficiencies, especially low B vitamins. The low fat diet, a person going on too low a fat. Oh, fat makes me fat. No. If you don't have enough of the good HDL, the good fat, then you will not build your brain. And if you don't have a good enough fat metabolism, as I've talked in the past, that's related to your liver and your gallbladder. If your gallbladder, if your bile flow, if your gallbladder is jammed up, then you are not getting fat into your system, even if you eat it. It's not going to your brain. It's going right into the toilet. So there's things that we can do about that. Okay, very quickly, like the limonene. Immediately, you can put some limonene in your water, and now you can get fat. Diabetes, insulin resistance, huge factor. If I'm pre-diabetic. I'm fine. The doctor told me I'm pre-diabetic. I just need to watch it. Whoa, you really need to watch it, because that's a huge thing that affects your brain. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. What's that, Jason? Okay, it's being exposed to these headphones, sleeping with your head next to an outlet. There's all kinds of things. There's an unseen world that is damaging our nervous system, including our brain. There's things that we can do about that. Neck and spinal misalignment. This is one of the hugest things, meaning it's what's called forward head posture. Look at older people and you can see their head kind of goes forward. Look at young people, and if you look at from the side when they're young and a teenager, almost like military, a really good, healthy, strong person who is very fit, including a child, is their ear is over their shoulder, is over their hip, is over their knee, is over the ankle. It's almost like you draw a straight line. Now, what's one of the major factors that I'm going to put an alarm on who is creating the biggest risk as a young person that's going to give you pretty much a good guarantee that a lot of them are going to get Alzheimer's? These kids on their screens, look at their heads. Their heads are forward. They got their face in the screen. Let me explain something to you. Your head, as I said, is supposed to be designed to be straight on top of your shoulders because your brain comes out, the brain stem comes out of your brain. And there's a hole. It's kind of like a flower pot. There's a hole at the bottom of your head. That's where the nerve, that's where the spinal cord, and that's the only way for blood to come through. And it fits right on top of other holes. So if that hole is misaligned, it will pinch on nerves, but it will also pinch on blood flow. So one of the leading causes that they're now really discovering, other than metals and the other things, is this forward head posture. It pinches on the blood vessels and it starves the brain of oxygen and nutrients. And when the brain is starved of nutrients and oxygen, it dies, okay? That's something that, again, going to a chiropractor to help you to get back there, doing some specific neck exercises that I can teach you later. But, start looking at this. Notice these kids. Notice your grandkids. Notice yourself. If you notice me, if you walk behind me, you'll notice oftentimes I'll catch myself in the mirror. I'll pull my head back almost like it looks weird. But I'm trying because this is happening to me too. You got to fix it. Okay? Again, neck and spine. Here's the other one thing, dental. This is why I talk about dental, because number one, the mercury that we have in the old fillings and dental infection. You can have a bad tooth, a bad root that you'll never cause pain. You'll never know it, but it's leaching. Dental infection, meaning a dead root in a tooth or even like gingivitis, but especially a dead root, is the only infection in the body that it can't heal on its own. You need dental intervention. You need a dentist. That's why I talk so much about dentists. And if you got a bad enough tooth that it's causing, let's say, an abscess, get it out. Don't even mess with getting a root canal. Get it out. If you got metal in your teeth and they've been there for a long time, meaning like my dad was a dentist, you should have seen, I don't have any metal in my mouth. I got it all removed. And you have to remove it very carefully with a very specific type of dentist that does it correctly, because otherwise you can vaporize this mercury when you're drilling it out, and that goes into your brain, into your bloodstream. There are things that we can do to chelate it. There's chelation therapy, which is you go to these doctors and they put intravenous stuff. But there's herbs. There's really great herbs and muds like the bentonite clay and zeolite. I've got answers for all of this stuff. Bacterial and viral infections, okay? Viral, and again, people can live with these. And let me include there, like I talked last week, is parasites, parasitical infection. You can have brain parasites, okay? Especially if you eat a lot of pork and you eat a lot of sushi, or if you live with cats. Toxoplasmosis is something that can be very, very, you can breathe it in the vapors, like from cats' litter boxes. That can get in your brain. People eat lots of pork. Pork is one of the particular cysted types of parasites that come from pork are really strong, and no amount of cooking or barbecue will get rid of it. There's a lot of that comes with that. And again, sushi. There's been, again, when you're eating raw fish, there's a lot of parasites that are raw fish. And if you don't have good digestion, enough hydrochloric acid, they go right into your system. And there are many of these parasites that go right for your brain. Let's go back to viruses. Epstein-Barr viruses, many of the hepatitis that you can have hepatitis and don't even know it because you're asymptomatic, meaning it doesn't cause a symptom. I don't know. Maybe I get a fever every once in a while or just kind of feel off and weird, but I take something from that. I take an aspirin. We can be covering up stuff that is really attacking our brain, okay? Okay. The new body research that says that there's a potential link between Alzheimer's disease and stress. Let's go back to this thing as stress. Okay, let's go back to the top of the list, stress. Okay, stress. What is, and again, we are in a super stressful time right now. Again, is it just the environment? Well, there are tactics. Do you know how to handle your stress? Do you know how to take a vacation from yourself? We'll get later into deep breathing is a super great thing. Walking out in the woods, especially barefoot in the grass, where you also do grounding. Finding a way where you can chill. Take a chill pill. Finding a way where you can get away from this. Again, even like stress management type of thing, like anger management, learning to count. I mean, there's a whole bunch of strategies, but take it serious. And sometimes one of the best strategies is you need to stop that job. It's killing you. You need to stop trying to earn so much money, in order to, this is what happened to my dad. It was a big thing. I think my dad worked himself to death. Yes, he had cancer, but I think he really, really prolonged it, or perpetuated it, because he really wanted us to have a really good life. But I really wish he wouldn't have died at 51. I wish he would have lived a lot longer, because I did not get a chance to be an adult with both my mom and my dad. And there are some, now they didn't die from Alzheimer's, but again, stress, I believe, played a role. He was a very, very hard worker, and he gave us a great life. And I'm so thankful. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Dad. But I've learned from what I would call mistakes. And I will tell you, stress is the thing. And again, what is it if a man gains the whole world but loses his soul, or loses his life because you work so hard? What are you working for? It's all about longevity. People want you. Your family wants you. Okay? We get into sleep. There are so many problems with sleeping, again. And when you take the sleeping pills, or let's say an Ambien or something like that, it'll knock you out, right? Yes. Or like say a Valium, the drugs that will knock you out. But your brain does not do the brain waves that it would normally be. It just knocks you out. So you're really not sleeping. So if you're dependent on some sleeping aids, now the herbal sleeping aids, like things like chamomile and valerian and ziziphus and all of these things that are in these herbs that I have, these supplements, those do not disrupt. Melatonin. Taking melatonin. Now, we're supposed to produce melatonin when we sleep well, and it's produced in the pineal gland. The pineal gland also then, when it produces melatonin, when we wake up, so melatonin is produced at nighttime while we're sleeping, okay? But then melatonin converts into serotonin, and serotonin is the I feel good, I feel happy, I feel undepressed. When people are depressed, they have low serotonin levels. But how much of low serotonin levels comes from the fact you didn't sleep good? First of all, you didn't put yourself to sleep. You sat there watching the TV, and I'm a culprit of this. I've done this a lot of my life, and I was one of the kids that wanted to stay up late, and I got into a habit of staying up late and eating late and stuff like that. But I'm learning, and I've learned to get your sleep, and it's as simple as just put yourself to bed. And even if you got to lay there counting sheep, it's better than sitting there watching the idiot box, because even the brain. Okay, what can affect melatonin? The blue waves that come from screens, what's called the blue screens. Okay, so if you got a computer, put the screen, what's called the nighttime thing on it. If you really want to help your brain produce melatonin, make sure you are off of the screens for 3 hours. Or if you're going to be on screen, make sure you have what's called blue blockers. You can get these blue blockers for glasses, but in general, get the TV out of the bedroom. Don't have it there. Don't watch TV so late. If you wake up, don't get up and watch TV, because it will screw your brain up and you will not be able to produce melatonin, which is, in the long run, there's a huge relationship to the brain not being able to rewire itself and repair itself, and thereby it falls apart. We know that people's dementia can also be sped along very quickly. You can turn a person's brain, dementia can take many years, but you can make it develop in months. Why this? Through sleep deprivation and trauma. So again, people that were, for instance, put into, let's say, a concentration camp, or they were taken prisoner during a wartime, and they were prisoner of war, and they weren't allowed to sleep, and they were tortured and things like that. They don't come out the same, and many of them, and they could be smart as a whip, but they come out in the brain just fell apart. So stress and sleep deprivation can really do that. Okay. Sleeping also creates what's called the glymphatic. There's a lymph system, but there's the glymphatic system. This is active during sleep. Okay. The glymphatic system is a perivascular network in the brain that is responsible for the exchange of interstitial fluid and cerebral spinal fluid. Your brain makes cerebral spinal fluid, which is what it floats in. So the baby floats in the amniotic fluid so that it doesn't bust against the walls. It's the same thing that your brain does. Your brain creates a fluid that it floats in so that it doesn't, even if it has a hard trauma, that it doesn't smack again. That's what a concussion is. Is the brain get hit so hard that it smacks on the inside of your skull. Okay. Through this process, this damage of the brain, which is these plaques, are cleared during the sleep, and is thought that that the brain sleep repairs the trauma and the damage. Sleep undoes the damage to the brain. A better functioning lymphatic system can reduce neurodegeneration, which has then been linked to dementia and depression, as well as other brain issues. This also goes towards, if you don't really sleep enough during the week, sleep in during the weekend, sleep in. You can repair sleep, but it's better to have really good sleep throughout the whole time so that you can produce melatonin as well as all of these other hormones. Now we get into hormones. What is how do we repair hormones? Sleep hormones of like progesterone and estrogen and DHEA and androgens. These all can be repaired through number one, behaviors. Sleep is a big, huge thing. You can repair your what you would call hormonal imbalances. A huge part of hormonal imbalances come from bad fat metabolism, meaning it's not that your hormone factories are broken, it's the transport system. This is liver and gallbladder, which is super common here in America. So doing liver detoxes, if you come to see me, again, my name is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority. You can give me a call, 734-985-5891. And I can test you in my office. I do what's called QRA testing. If you want to know what QRA testing, I just posted a new video called What is QRA? That's on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Jason Eagle QRA, because people go, what do you mean? Are you taking blood? No, the testing is not like that. It's a non-invasive, hands-on, what's called kinesiological, an advanced kinesiological testing. I don't want to explain it here, it's too difficult, but you can see it. The video shows you exactly what QRA is, and it tells you. It's asking your brain, asking your body, tell me what's going on. And so many times when people are trying to fix these hormone problems, with hormones or with bioidentical hormones, you can really get in deep danger because you're flooding the system with these hormones that you already have enough hormones. What you don't have is the delivery system, which is the fat metabolism. So that's what I always do when I'm dealing with hormones, which is let's fix the delivery system, because 9 times out of 10, it's not the factories, it's the delivery system, okay? So these are things that we can do. And again, this is all about fixing what would cause dementia, including especially Alzheimer's. Okay, and you start with it early. Okay, insulin. Again, people that one of the biggest thing that affects your degeneration of the brain is with your whole nervous system. Again, forget about like dementia. Let's say people are just having a hard time remembering things. I'm just getting old. I'm not saying that it's in their 30s. Number one, it's hormones, low hormones, and of which causes this. There's some things that we can do to repair that. Brain trauma, okay? Head trauma at any point in the life. Again, we're talking about how many babies were dropped on their head. And the parents don't feel bad about it happened to it, but I've seen so many cases where, no, I didn't have a car accident, but there was that time I got that scar on my chin when I ran into that table and it knocked me out, or I got dropped in my head, or I was delivered with if you're old enough, sometimes they can, when they pulled you out, they use this, what they call the salad spoons, the forceps, and that could damage the skull because the baby's head is so soft that it can literally leave. That's where it started. It could start very, very early. Second impact syndrome is when a second concussion causes the brain to swell rapidly before the symptoms of the first concussion have subsided. So again, a person who gets hit in the head, let's say in football, and they have a minor concussion, and then they put them back out there, and then they get hit very lightly, hardly anything, just like they jerk their head. The second one is way, way worse than the first one, even though the trauma level is way, way lower, okay? It most often leads to the death and severely disables most of those who survive, right? However, it can also be hidden. People can walk off this or walk away from the car accident and go, I feel fine, but it shows up years later. So if we've had some sort of head trauma, come in right away. We can check for it and we can treat it. And you can treat it and stop it before it really gets in. Environmental toxins. Okay, this has been talked about before. Okay, aluminum. We talked about aluminum getting into the brain. Okay, we can talk about all the other metals. Okay, aluminum, one of the top sources is number one, cooking with, and number two is antiperspirants. Now there's deodorant and then there's antiperspirant. An antiperspirant, again, there's different things and so do not buy an antiperspirant. Okay, what an antiperspirant has alum in it. Okay, remember those old, it was like cartoons. Remember like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where they would have a turkey and they would, a whole big turkey and they would pour this salt stuff. It looked alum and it shrunk it, or they would put it and it would make their mouth shrink. What alum does, the reason they put aluminum inside antiperspirant is because it makes the sweat glands close up and shrink, and so you don't sweat. But see, toxins come out of your sweat and they just stay inside there. But the aluminum penetrates and gets in, and especially you're sticking it under your armpits, that's the lymphatic system. And so there's huge relationships between antiperspirants and breast cancer, because those lymph nodes are right there at the breast. And where's it go? It goes right in there. Now it also gets into the brain, okay? So aluminum is one of the top things that's been shown to. Now there's aluminum that's put into vaccines. Vaccines are very toxic. There's a lot of what's called adjuvants, including thimerosal. They still do it, which is mercury. They put all kinds of metals inside of vaccines. So your flu vaccine or something like that, you're injecting metals, babies that are injected with these metals that could just be. Now, what do you do about it? It was there. How do we get it out? There are things that you can do that is, so you're not, again, it's not a curse. Heavy metals are not a curse. Now, how do we find out about heavy metals? How does a person want to know? You can do blood testing. You can ask your doctor, actually test your blood. But there's a better way, and you can do it on your own, which is you can actually go online and you can get these heavy metal tests that are a hair analysis, which is it asks you to clip, it gives you a little kit, and it tells you how to do it. And, clip a little hair from the back of your neck, or if you color your hair, you're going to take some underarm hair or some pubic hair or something like that, because you don't color that area because it can't have the chemicals because that will show up. And when your hair grows, it's depositing the metals in it. And so it shows a very true sense of how your metals are. And it will come back and it will show you got this much lead, you got this much tin, you got this much. And then if you have high levels of these things, then you can go on these therapies. And if it's really, really high, then I recommend that you do a combination of taking some of these herbs as well as chelation therapy. Cutler Integrative Medicine here in Michigan, they do intravenous chelation, which is these they put it into your arm, into the vein, and it's these things that pull metals out, and it works. It works very well. Mercury, that's coming from your teeth. Fluoride, where's fluoride coming from? It's coming from your water, it's coming from your toothpaste, and let me tell you, it's been disproven already that fluoride does not fix your teeth. It does not reduce cavities. It turns your teeth into rock hard. It also turns your brain into rock hard, but fluoride will then calcify your pineal gland, which is this gland that's inside your head. Again, where did we hear pineal gland? That's where you make melatonin. And so you can literally turn your pineal gland into a rock. And because that's one of the things that your pineal gland is it has natural fluorite. It is a crystal. It's the thing that they showed in The Dark Crystal. If you ever saw that movie, the Jim Henson's Dark Crystal, where they had those evil bird-like things and they put the person in the middle and they were sucking energy out of it. They were sucking. That's what the Dark Crystal is. It's actually the pineal gland. Look into it. This is really interesting. And what they were showing is harvesting energy from the pineal gland. But first of all, they toxify it. So fluoride, where did fluoride come from? Look into it. It first was used in Nazi concentration camps because what it does is it makes people docile. And it also it basically brainwashes you. So it's been disproven that it actually does anything for tooth decay. You know what does something for tooth decay? Xylitol. Xylitol and ozine or ozone. These are the things. And where does real dental infection come from in terms of tooth decay? It comes from the gut. Comes from the sugars, but it's first the sugars that are brewing in your gut because you can't eat too many sugars. It's not just all the sugary stuff that you're sitting with your mouth. Yes, that impacts it, but really it starts in the gut. Okay, copper toxicity. There can be lots of copper toxicity. Heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides. These things, again, what are the herbicides? The Roundup, right? There's class action lawsuits in terms of showing that it causes cancer, but again, it causes dementia, it causes Alzheimer's. So the Roundup stuff that they put in all our wheat, that's why I really recommend people start going gluten-free because that's a huge source of what's called glyphosate, that's the Roundup stuff. Forget about, causing cancer. That's lowest on the totem pole. It totally disrupts your body's ability to uptake calcium. It blocks it's a calcium channel blocker, that's how your brain works. That's how your whole system works. Other risk factors associated with Alzheimer's disease onset: obesity and insulin resistance, right? People who are, now this is a bad time because people, again, are not able to go to the health clubs. Shutting down the health clubs, kind of bad news. So go out there and get moving. Again, cut down on the sugar. If you've got a pre-diabetes or diabetes in your life, there's great ways of fixing it. You can fix it. I've told in my previous shows, I've even taken insulin-dependent people who had to be on it and are no longer taking insulin at all. And it's just through dietary changes and a couple supplements. That was it. Elevated uric acid levels. That's gout. People that tend towards gout, it's blocking, and it's, again, these are the things that goes to forming these plaques in the brain that then becomes the Alzheimer's disease. High blood pressure. So you can lower your blood pressure. There's great things to do to lower. So if you have a elevated blood pressure, I'm pre-hypertensive, and you live like that for 20, 30 years, you are at a much higher risk, and you can lower it, but you got to know it. Thyroid dysfunction, meaning hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, you can fix that too, and not just from taking Synthroid and all these other drugs. Your immune system deficiency. If a person has, if you go back to a number of the shows, this past year, that I've done a ton on how do I boost my immune system? How do I fix my immune system? A lowered immune system is going to put you at a higher risk of giving you Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, smoking, alcohol. Okay, people that are baby alcoholics or full-blown alcoholics are going to have a huge risk factor. Cut down on the alcohol. It's really, again, you may have had a good time this weekend, but is it really worth the risk of having your last 10, 20 years not knowing who you are and it's just misery. So start working on it right now. Neck and spinal realignment. Start seeing a chiropractor. I know so many people who go, I'm scared of those chiropractors. I've heard stories that they break people's necks Okay, let me tell you. Many people, the chiropractors get a bad rap because they've watched all of these stupid movies, in particular like the Jean-Claude Van Damme or even, the Arnold Schwarzenegger stupid movies where they show someone walking up behind somebody and twisting their neck and then, they drop dead. That's impossible. Okay, if you did that to somebody, mostly they would turn around and go, what'd you do that for? So when people see a chiropractor, let's say, twisting a neck or something like that, they go, I'm really scared that they're going to make me brain dead or something. It doesn't happen. If people's necks were that delicate, it's all Hollywood. It's all a show. So trust a chiropractor. And there's a lot of chiropractics that do minimal in terms of, there's a whole, especially the upper cervical guys, They don't even do the twisting type of stuff of this is what we're talking about. And again, you can have a misalignment that happened that you've grown, like a scoliosis. Many people have scoliosis. Most people have some form of scoliosis. And we're not talking about the super misshapen. Almost nobody has a completely straight back. However, it can be repaired and it can get closer and you can bring it back, because really, especially chiropractics, we're talking about realigning that hole back up to get your brain breathing again. And also to get your cerebral spinal fluid pumping, because the fluid that's inside, remember I talked about the brain, think about the amniotic fluid, like the baby is inside, or think about like the egg. The yolk is inside the white, and the yolk is floating on the inside because it's protected from banging against the inside of the skull. Your brain is that same way, which is it's inside now, but that fluid also hydrates and nutrifies the brain, and it also cleans it out. So we constantly need to rebuild cerebral spinal fluid. One, running or jogging or walking, that pumps it. Breathing, good diaphragmatic breathing pumps this fluid, because your diaphragm is right on your spinal cord and it pumps this. Riding bikes are really good for the cerebral spinal fluid because it pumps what's called the cranial sacral fluid, because your cranial is your head, but your head is, there's a pipe, there's a tube, the cerebral spinal. So you've heard about people doing a spinal tap. Where do they do the spinal tap? At the low back, because it's a sealed tube. You're kind of like a pop bottle. And the sacrum is this thing, it's that right in your low back and your butt crack, that's where that lowest spine is. And that's through walking and moving, it's supposed to pump, and it pumps this fluid from your brain to your spine. And as it pumps, it circulates. And again, it's like a body of water that doesn't move becomes stagnant, and it will start to grow the flies and the mosquitoes, and it will get toxic. That's what happens to the brain. So like a stream, keep it flowing. If you keep it flowing, then it's fresh and clean, and it keeps the brain clean, and it keeps the brain working. Okay? Exercise. Oh, let me go back to this dental. Figure out what's going on with your teeth. Your teeth, again, where are your teeth? We're talking about the brain. What's closest to your brain? Your teeth. Your teeth are right there on your brain. If you go to the roof of your mouth, okay, the roof of your mouth, your brain's right there. Your brain, you got sinuses there, but your brain is right up under there. And that's the base of your brain, the bottom of your brain, especially the most part of the critical function, including the back of your throat. That's where your spinal cord is. That's where that hole is. So it's called the foramen magnum. That's the hole of where the blood flow kind of comes out. And so if you got toxic teeth, including gum disease, bad breath with gum disease, or when the doctor is saying you've got these pockets, listen, I'm telling you how to cure it. I told you again, if you got stinky teeth, okay, you got this gum disease. It's because bacteria have gotten inside and they've gotten into what's called the periodontal ligament, and they form these pockets. And no amount of flossing is going to get that out. Here's what fixes it. Number one, get a dental pick, or the water pick. You can get, or a water flosser, and you put regular water in there, or you can put salt water there, or you can put some salt, or you can put some water with a little bit of hydrogen peroxide because it's putting oxygen in there. You can get those dental picks like I talked about, like the gum little dental picks, and you dip it in. You can get an olive oil that has ozone in it. And I'm telling you, in a couple months, your gingivitis, your dental infection goes right away, especially if it's gum disease, because gum disease is these putrid things that are growing in there. Number one, it goes straight to your heart. So one of the top linkages of heart disease is actually gingivitis, dental disease, or gum infection. But the other thing is, we know it is what's toxifying your brain. And then, like I said, metals. old metals. You got the old metal fillings, you got some metal jacketed crowns, there's all kinds of metals. If you have dissimilar, I get some gold, I got some a little bit of silver. Those are the worst because your mouth, the saliva is like a battery acid and it will leach the metals out, and mercury vaporizes. They've shown when you eat hot stuff, what it does is they've put in, like, say, coffee. Let's say you drink hot tea or coffee and you put hot tea or coffee on, you raise it to that temperature. Look at a dental. So basically they've removed a tooth out of a person that had a filling in it, one of those metal fillings, the silver fillings. And then they use this special device to see, you can see the mercury vapor, okay? And when they pour hot water on it, of drinking a cup of hot water or hot tea, you see it goes whoosh, and it increases the amount of, so if you got metal in your mouth, every time you eat something hot, every time you drink, you're making more vapors come out. So metal should not be in the body, especially in the mouth. Get it out. So what do we do about that? Okay. We do exercise. Exercise is people go, I can't do the push-ups, or I don't. Just walk outside. People go, the treadmill. The treadmill is used when the weather's bad, but the weather's mostly not bad. Get outside, especially when we're walking on uneven pathway. It makes your brain exercise. Your brain lights up, not the most with math, in terms of, like, and they can look at the brain and they say, what makes the brain work the most? It's not thinking, it's not math, it's not music, it's walking. Walking, because you have to use both, because when we do math, we're only using one side of the brain. When we're using art, we're using the other side of the brain. Whereas when you're walking, you're using both sides of the brain at the same time, because as you step on one leg, the opposite arm swings and it goes back and forth. And also, again, it pumps the sacrum. So walking just pumps the brain, okay? Rhythmic movement and mindful exercises. Dancing, okay? Dancing is so helpful. The hula hoop, I mean, just think about any type of thing. Get one of those little jogging trampolines. Those things are really, really good to do that. Mindfulness meditation, okay? I'll get into this in a minute in terms of progressive muscle meditation. Deep breathing, okay? Here's one thing that we can do when you combine the deep breathing. One, you can do just sitting there, okay? Breathing into your belly and breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Out through your mouth. Deep breathing. Now, there's another thing that we can do, which is called body scan meditation or progressive muscle relaxation. What you do is you lay on the floor, lay on your back, lay with your arms kind of spread out and just lay there, right? And what you're doing is you are systematically going through each part of your body. So here's the sequence. You're laying there, get into a good place, maybe a dark room. You want to make sure there's not a whole lot of distractions all over the place. So slowly tense your muscles, squeezing as tightly as you can, and hold for a count to 10 and then relax. So this is what you do. Or here's another way of doing it. You don't have to squeeze. What you do is just put your attention on it. So as you're laying there, you start with this. You start for your right foot. So let's just start with not the squeezing. Let's just start with just paying attention. You're laying there and you're just kind of feeling your whole body. What you do is you then start with your right foot. Put your attention. Almost even wiggle your toes. Barely wiggle. Okay, there's my right foot. Okay, there I feel. And then let it go back. Go back to where you were before. Then do your left foot. Okay, boom. Now then you move up to your right calf. Boom. And your left calf. Again, you're just feeling it, being aware of it. Bring your attention to it. And then right thigh, left thigh, hips, buttocks, stomach, chest, back, and slowly give it a few seconds. And so after a couple of minutes, you've gone all the way up through your face to your top of your head. You're just feeling it, becoming aware, and you'll notice that your whole body just relaxes. Then you can do this. People say, how do I relax? Now add this one where you do it again or a different time where you tense it. Tense the right foot. like squeeze it, or so you can squeeze the foot, like kind of like pinching your foot like this, or you can open it up, right? So just kind of make the muscles, and then tense the calf muscles, and then tense the right calf muscles, and then tense the leg muscles, and then the left muscles, and then go back and forth until you get all the way up to, you can, so how do you do your face? You squint your face and then relax it. How do you do your, like your skull, the top of your head? You know, you can move your hair, like with your eyebrows. You can, you know, make your eyebrows. So what you're doing is going from the bottom all the way up. Very, very helpful in terms of really, really working. These are, yep, that's basically it. These are the things that you can do. And again, if you want to get into some supplements, there's a whole bunch of supplements that you can do if you're starting to notice some memory loss. But if you, like for instance, you tend to be a person where it's in my family and I really want to protect myself from this, what do? I'm really afraid of it. Don't be afraid, because early treatment and early attention on anything, and that's why I'm bringing your attention to this, because most people go, I'll think about it when I get there. I'll deal with it. No, with this one, it's too late. And the things that you do start when you're younger and starts before you ever happen. And there's so much you can do about it before it happens, even as you start noticing. So this is Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority. Today was about Alzheimer's. Do not be afraid, but hopefully this taught you something in terms of what you can do before it happens. Or even if you know somebody in your family that's tending towards this, get them to see me, get them to listen to this, get them to deal with this, because it's a scary thing. But if early addressed, it can be completely done away with. So this is Jason Eagle, Natural Health Authority. Until next time, bye-bye. Thank you.
Jason will help you live a pain-free, high-energy, healthier life naturally. As a certified practitioner in multiple healing modalities, Jason creates a finely tuned and highly personalized program just for you that will get you back to living your best life. Get started today by calling 734-985-5891 to make your appointment, or go online to strategichealing.us. Strategic Healing is located at 2545 North Opdyke Road, Suite 106A in Auburn Hills. Ask the Experts with Jason Eagle of Strategic Healing can be heard every Wednesday at 1 p.m. right here on WRDT, the Word Station.
AM 560 is Detroit's Word Station. WRDT, Monroe, Detroit, and WRDT.
Hi, Gina. Okay, everybody, thanks a lot, Facebook. And, you know, if you're watching me on Facebook, send me some questions. I'm looking for material in terms of what to do my shows on. And so give me some ideas, or ask some people around, which is, you know, what do you want to know about health? What do you want to know about natural health? What are you curious about? Whether it be a condition or even just, I want to know more about this. I need ideas, and I would appreciate it. So until then, bye-bye.